The invitation arrived on a Wednesday. Silver black cardstock, silver foil lettering, and all the pomp you'd expect from the Hawthornes. It announced the annual family reunion, to be held this year in San Francisco. I traced the raised print with my thumb, memories flickering like static, forced smiles, sharp whispers, eyes that never quite met mine. My name is Marin Hawthorne. In the business world, though, I go by Marin Blake. 15 years ago, I was the disappointment. The artsy one who rejected her place at Hawthorne Investments to study hotel management in Portland. The black sheep with big dreams and no seat at the grown-ups table. My phone buzzed. Serena. I picked up. Marin, she cooed, too brightly. Hope you got the invite. I did. Just wanted to mention, this year's venue is very upscale. The Celestia Resort. You understand, right? I glanced out at the Los Angeles skyline from my penthouse office at Blake Hospitality Group. The Celestia, my first 5-star flagship, not that she knew that. Are you implying I won't fit in, Serena? Don't be sensitive, she replied. Saccharine, we're expecting celebrities, founders, even a senator. You know how appearances matter. Appearances, she meant me. And who chose the venue? I did, she said, triumphant. Dad says I have an eye for luxury. The Celestia's exclusive. I had to pull serious strings to land it. I nearly laughed. She'd booked it through our premium site, at 40% above standard. I approved it myself. That must have been tough, I said. Oh, totally. The owner, some M. Blake, doesn't even do interviews. But the staff bent over backward once they heard the Hawthorne name. Of course they did. I told them to. Anyway, Serena continued, I'm sure you get it. Maybe next year, if you've moved up from that little motel in Silver Lake. That little motel was the blueprint for my entire empire. Sure, I said. After the call, I leaned back in my chair, the hum of LA traffic barely audible through double-glazed glass. I remembered everything. 15 years ago, I left the University of Oregon with a hotel management degree, wild ideas, and zero support. You'll be scrubbing toilets, my father scoffed. No Hawthorne wears a name tag. But I did. I cleaned rooms, carried bags, calmed angry guests, and trained staff from the ground up. I didn't want to run hotels. I wanted to reimagine them. And to do that, I had to understand every corner of their operation. 4 years in, I launched my first property, the Blue Lantern, a boutique stay in Silver Lake. It sold out every weekend. Now I'm 34, and I own 21 resorts across 5 countries. The Celestia, their chosen venue, is my crown jewel. A fusion of minimalist elegance and sustainable innovation. It's won Luxury Resort of the Year, twice. And yet somehow, my family still thinks it's too good for me. Another buzz. Marcus, my assistant. Reunion contract ready for signature. Want me to bring it up? I replied, smiling. No need, I've got plans for this one. I opened my laptop and began editing the event orders. They thought I didn't belong? They were about to experience what real power feels like, when the outsider signs your guest list. Every decision, menu, lighting, scent, music, would pass through my hands. A quiet spectacle, tailored elegance. I remembered the kids' table they stuck me at, well into my 20s. Serena's wedding, where I was seated next to the valets. Thought you'd feel more at home, she'd chirped. By then, I already owned 9 hotels. They never asked. Never saw past the version of me they chose to remember. Only Camille, my younger sister, had kept in touch. Though even she didn't know just how far I'd come. She called just as I was finalizing the last adjustments. Marin, she said softly, Sarah told me, she asked you not to come. I'm really sorry. Don't be, I said, clicking the signature line. Actually, can you do me a favor? Make sure everyone arrives exactly at 7 p.m. Why, what's happening? Let's just say Serena's not the only one with pull at the Celestia. The next 2 weeks flew by. I approved every detail, down to the floral shade and the scent diffused through the lobby. They wanted luxury? I would give them unforgettable. The night before the reunion, I stood silently in the Celestia's lobby, watching my staff polish the marble until it gleamed like still water. Tomorrow, the Hawthornes would arrive. And for the first time in their lives, they'd walk into my house. Light from the chandeliers spilled across the ballroom, catching on every crystal edge and gilded accent. The coastal-inspired decor, white stone columns, subtle gold trim, sea glass highlights, glowed like something out of a luxury travel spread. Every detail was perfect. Marcus appeared beside me, tablet in hand. All set. Signage reveal at 7:15 p.m. Sharp. Still want to go through with it? I didn't pause. Serena's voice echoed in my memory, all fake sweetness and veiled insult, so many years of being dismissed. Absolutely, I said. It's not every day I get to welcome my family to my own resort. I smiled to myself. Tomorrow, everything would change. By 6:45 p.m. the next evening, I was watching the ballroom's arrivals on the suite's security feed. A procession of high heels, tailored suits, and competing designer bags paraded in, everyone dripping with curated importance. Serena swept through the doors first in red Valentino, already bossing the staff around like she belonged behind the desk. She posed next to the floral centerpiece she hadn't paid for. Next came the black Bentley, my father's. Behind it, a caravan of European cars carrying uncles, aunts, and cousins who hadn't spoken my name in a decade, at least, not kindly. Marcus checked his tablet. Staff's queued. All transitions on schedule. Want me to alert security? I shook my head. No need. They won't risk shattering their illusion of class. I straightened the lapels of my slate gray Armani suit. No one here would guess that I owned more of the label than Serena had handbags. Let them settle in, I said. It's showtime soon. Downstairs, the ballroom buzzed with champagne and carefully filtered conversation. Serena floated from group to group, rehashing the exclusive pull it took to book the venue. My father circled the room, talking market trends and IPOs. Cousins posed beneath the Celestia signage like it conferred prestige just by proximity. At 7:10 p.m., the hotel manager approached Serena with polite urgency. Miss Hawthorne, apologies, but we've had a small issue with the reservation. Her smile faltered. I arranged this directly through corporate, she said sharply. Yes, ma'am, the manager replied evenly. It's just that the owner had special instructions for tonight's event. Serena scoffed, waving a manicured hand. I highly doubt Blake even knows this event is happening. The ballroom stilled as I stepped out from the back. She does, I said, voice steady. In fact, she's had quite a lot to do with it. Heads turned, forks stilled, champagne paused mid-sip. Serena blinked. Marin? My father's voice followed, clipped and cold. What are you doing here? She said I couldn't afford to attend, I replied, worried I'd embarrass the family. Serena's face went pale. This is a private event, I'll have security. No, I interrupted, calm and unshakable, you won't. Marcus, already stationed near the AV console, tapped the screen. Behind me, the LED wall lit up. The Celestia logo appeared first. Then, in bold white letters, owned and operated by Marin Hawthorne Blake, founder CEO, Blake Hospitality Group. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. A flute slipped from someone's hand and shattered. Somewhere near the dessert table, someone whispered, "She owns this?" Serena just stared. "That's not possible," she said faintly. "Would you like a business card?" I offered, pulling a sleek black case from my pocket. "Or the deed?" I held it up, a casual trophy. My father stepped forward, blinking like he'd seen a ghost. "You own this place? And all those other hotels?" I nodded once. "This one's special. It's where I started, back when you said I was throwing my life away cleaning rooms." The room blurred for a moment with memory, Serena laughing at my uniform, relatives whispering behind champagne glasses, my name absent from every invitation, every photo. "All this time," I said, voice low but firm, "you looked down on me, but you never once looked up." I turned to Serena. "That motel in Silver Lake you love to mock? That was my prototype, the foundation of a brand you now can't afford to ignore." Marcus moved through the crowd, handing out navy leather folders to the key family members. "These," he announced, "contain a portfolio on Blake Hospitality Group and the invoice for tonight's event." Serena tore hers open, her expression dropped. "This rate is above market, by 40%. I gave her a smile. "Family surcharge." Camille burst into laughter near the back. The tension cracked. A few others chuckled, nervously at first, then louder. My father's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" I met his gaze. "Would you have listened?" He didn't answer. The silence that followed said more than words ever could. 15 years ago, I said, softly now, you told me no daughter of yours would ever work in a hotel. I stepped forward, the room parting around me, every eye fixed in place. "Well," I said, The weight of every year finally lifting. You were right about one thing. I don't work in a hotel, I said, pausing for effect. Then, a smile tugged at my lips. I own them. As I spoke, the digital screens around the room flickered to life, displaying panoramic shots of my resorts worldwide. The golden sands and crystal waters of our overwater villas in the Maldives. The serene, snow-draped elegance of our Swiss alpine retreat. The towering grandeur of our glass-fronted property in Dubai, its skyline like a crown against the horizon. I watched the room react, each image etching itself into their minds. As for tonight's reunion, I added smoothly, your reservation hasn't been cancelled. You're all welcome to stay. In fact, I've arranged a private tour of the property. I think it's time you experienced what a career in customer service really looks like. Serena stepped forward, her carefully crafted poise faltering for the first time. Marin, we never meant. I didn't let her finish. Yes, you did. Every snide comment, every exclusion, every time you treated me like the help. My gaze swept across the room, my voice rising just enough to carry across the space. But while you were busy upholding your precious status, I was busy building a legacy. Welcome to the Celestia. The murmurs in the room grew louder. My team will escort you to your upgraded suites, I continued, savoring the moment. Though, Serena, I turned toward her, a knowing glint in my eye. Your room had to be adjusted last minute due to a high-profile booking. We had to place you in one of our standard queen rooms. Her face went crimson, exactly the same room type she once mocked me for cleaning. As the rest of the family followed staff to their suites in awkward silence, my father stayed behind. I was wrong, he said softly, his voice unusually gentle, about everything. I studied him, the man who had once belittled my dreams now appearing smaller, unsure. Yes, I said quietly, but do you want to know the best part of owning 21 hotels, Dad? He raised an eyebrow, clearly curious. I've got 21 presidential suites, I said, voice steady. You can choose any one of them to stay in, while you figure out how to make things right. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Where'd you learn to negotiate like that? Probably the same place I learned true leadership, I replied, my voice firm, by starting at the bottom, something this family never had to do. Later that night, after the private tours and hushed conversations, I stood in my penthouse suite, gazing out at the San Francisco skyline. The city lights twinkled like a constellation I never imagined I'd be a part of. Marcus entered, a folder in hand. Tonight's final numbers, he said with a raised eyebrow. Your family seems humbled. I chuckled softly. Amazing what a little perspective, and a room without a view, can do. He smirked. Are you going to tell them? About Paris? Tokyo? I looked down at the contract on my desk, ready to be signed. Not yet, I said, smiling to myself. Let them be surprised. The Celestia was just the beginning. I turned back to the window. Let's save something for next year's reunion, I said aloud, knowing the world had only begun to take notice. Every smart hotelier knows, repeat guests are the best kind. I leaned against the window, my reflection framed by the skyline I used to only dream of. The journey, from scrubbing floors to signing international development deals, hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Success, I realized, wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving my family wrong. It was about proving myself right. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't cold at all, it's warm, luxurious, served with a rooftop breakfast and a view that takes your breath away. My phone buzzed. It was Serena. Can we talk tomorrow, please? I smiled and typed back. Of course. Your breakfast reservation is at 9 a.m. I own that restaurant too. There's power in simplicity, not just in wealth or status, but in being seen. Finally, for who I truly am. Not the help. Not the outsider. Not the family joke. But Marin Blake. The woman who built something real. The woman who wasn't invited to the reunion because she was too busy hosting it. As I gazed out over the city and the glowing Celestia signage below, I felt that familiar warmth in my chest, the sense of calm, closure, and purpose. Tomorrow would bring the next chapter of the Hawthorne family story, not one born from old money or empty pride, but from something earned. Because at the end of the day, every great hotel knows the secret. It's not just about offering a bed. It's about giving people something they'll never forget. And tonight, my family would remember. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking this journey with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Stayed quiet? Made the same choices? Or done something entirely different? Let's talk about it. I read every comment, and your perspective matters more than you know. If this story sparked something in you, hit that subscribe button. There's more ahead, more truth, more family twists, more growth. Because this wasn't just about a reunion. It was about reclaiming a space that was always mine to begin with. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes the world, and the people in it, won't see you until you've built something so undeniable they can't look away. That's okay. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them label you the underdog. Because quietly, consistently, and powerfully, you can rise. Start small. Start where they think you're nothing. Use every slight, every snide remark, every exclusion, as bricks in your foundation. You don't need revenge. You just need results. And when that day comes, when they walk into a room you own and don't even realize it yet, smile. Not because you beat them, but because you never needed their permission to shine. Your worth was never theirs to decide. So build, dream, show up. And when you do, I'll be here, cheering you on from the penthouse.